Egyptian officials deny claims made by a senior forensic analyst that an explosion on board most likely took down EgyptAir Flight 804 on Thursday, killing all 66 people on board. The anonymous source told the Associated Press that the small size of the passenger's remains and the presence of burn marks were clear indications of a blast. Middle East correspondent Paula Slier brings us more.
We're now hearing from the Egyptian head of forensics, who denies reports that the initial examination of human remains that have been salvaged from the wreckage point to an explosion on board the flight. The Egyptian Ministry of Justice also says that there are no traces of explosives that would point to any kind of bomb. French investigators say it is too early to reach any conclusive conclusions, and all of them are reacting to earlier statements made by a senior Egyptian forensic expert. He said that human remains found at the site of the wreckage in the Mediterranean Sea point to an explosion on board. Now, he was speaking anonymously because he had not been authorized to talk to the media, and he was saying this because he referenced the small size of the body parts. He is part of the official investigating team, and he's personally been to the morgue in Cairo where the body parts are being brought. Forensic officials in Cairo are now sifting through some 23 bags of human remains that have been salvaged from this crash site. And as I mentioned, the body parts are extremely small. The biggest we understand was the size of a palm, and this suggests that there was an explosion according to the initial reports. And if you follow that, then you have some people theorizing that the cause was terrorism. We have heard some Egyptian voices saying they believe this is the case, but again, the official word from the Egyptian investigators is that it's too soon to confirm what brought down the plane. And there are also experts who say that human remains could have resulted in the high-speed water impact. The search continues for the black boxes. These still need to be found, and of course it's a race against time as the batteries on these transmitters expire in about a month. And still missing is the plane's fuselage. So only when those are found and located will we probably have a better picture of what actually happened on that fateful flight.
Joining me now is Jaime Finch, an aviation expert and former consultant to the White House Commission on Aviation Safety. Can you walk us through sort of what's going on right now with regard to Egyptian officials and all of these claims that it was this, it wasn't this? What's going on here?
Well, there's a lot of speculation going on is what it is. And we are in an information age when we like to have our information immediate. And these investigations take time. And we cannot speculate on what has really happened here. We can have theories, we can be prepared for what those theories might prove out to be, but we cannot speculate on fact on what this really has brought down this plane. We owe it to the traveling public, we owe it to the airline industry, but most of all, we owe it to the families of those that lost loved ones on that crash.
When an official says something to the public like, as an anonymous source, that is, I'm looking at these pieces. There's one of them even said there isn't even a whole head, and they've got burn marks and things like those. Are pretty provocative things to be saying to the public. And so it leads people to really think that there's a cover-up of some sort. And so right now the media is reporting all of this, but how should we actually take this? Because if you also look at how the plane fell, other analysts are saying, oh, well, clearly it blew out of the sky.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Of course,
because
it's coming across
it's coming like that, and I understand. We have to look at physics. Whenever a plane crashes into the water, it's basically like hitting a wall, and so things break apart very quickly. There's a severe fragmentation. Unfortunately, I try to be very careful about how we say this because I want to be very sensitive to the family members. But there could be a post-crash fire that caused the burns. There's all kinds of things that are missing clues here. That the black boxes, once they find them, will give us some of those answers. But until they find those black boxes, we really cannot know what happened or start putting together the pieces of what happened, because it's going to take time. Even once they get the black boxes, they're going to have to analyze the information. They're going to have to match that with the flight data recorders, with the flight data recorders, with the the air traffic controllers,
Yeah.
the transmissions, the conversations that they had, also with satellite information that they had. They'll be looking at the medical records and health records of the pilots and the co-pilot.
Yeah.
Anyone that was involved or touched that plane. So there's going to be, it's going to take time, but we just cannot speculate on what brought this plane down.
Egypt's got an interesting history of air disaster public relations.
Yeah.
You've got experience with that.
Yes.
You were on the investigation for 990
Correct.
many years ago. What's your experience been like working with the Egyptian investigators on something like this?
Well, in that particular situation, because that plane crashed off of Nantucket, 6
Yes.
miles in international waters.
It's different, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and Egypt was officially in charge of the investigation because it was in international waters. However, they handed it over to the NTSB to do the investigation because we were more technically advanced as far as our investigative skills.
Okay.
They were still party to the investigation. Now, there were claims and denials, even after the NTSB came up with the conclusion that the first officer had a role in that crash. But I can say from this particular accident, I have not heard anyone from the Egyptian government or other officials say, oh, absolutely not, this could not be terrorism. So there seems to be much more openness into being open to what other possibilities might be. It's still, again, we're speculating on what it is, but it could be technical, it could be man-made, it could be natural. Of course, there's a report that just came out about the meteor.
Oh, you never know in this state. But so you're not willing to speculate for us here on air and say what you think it is? Because you've got to have some opinion.
I can't.
Based on what you've seen.
No,
Okay,
I can't.
fine.
I'm sorry.
I tried, everybody. All right. Well, thank you very much for this insight. It's always good to hear what an expert has to say about this and not just media babble all day long. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Jaime
very much.
Finch, aviation expert and former consultant to the White House Commission on Aviation Safety.